Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 424, and we're going to make this an update episode.
That's right, back-to-back update episodes where we're talking about all the things that are going on in our life in regards to reselling, what's going on in the reselling world at large. We're talking about, this week we're doing some hustles of the week instead of those spicy BOLOs. So we're going to be talking about some sweet sales that we've gotten and other people have gotten. And so we're really excited about today's episode. I think it's going to be fantastic. And you know, it's pretty awesome coming in 424 episodes in, and we're still rocking and rolling. I mean, there've been ups and downs, right? When it comes to reselling, there's ups, there's downs. But I think we're starting to feel a little bit of a swing up, and part of that's just that it's Q4, right? We've talked all year long. We've been talking about the fact that, you know, things can be rough, things can be hard, but you can still count on and bank on those Q4 sales no matter what's going on in the economy, good or bad. People are going to be buying for Christmas. It would have to be like devastatingly bad in order for people not to be spending money at the holiday time. It's just what people do, and once people start spending, they keep spending. And so for us as resellers, it's a beneficial thing.
Yeah, it's been wild. I would say since, you know, last Tuesday, and you know, wherever people land on the election, people have confidence right now, right? The crypto markets are up, the stock market's up. I feel like my eBay sales started picking up, and again, it could be a combination of many things, right? It could be some things I'll talk about, some things I've done different, but I definitely am seeing the upswing, the uptick in sales, and I'm grateful for it. I love it when it's one of those days where you don't know if you're going to get everything packed up and out the door in time, right?
I actually asked, I sent you a text message to see if you could record early, and you said you couldn't because you had too many packages to pack. That's a good problem to have.
It was a good, yeah, and it is. And actually, I didn't even get them all packed up. So, by the way, this is why we always ask people to help support us, because this does take away from our reselling business. Now, I will say there is a trick, and I don't know how much it works, but I have found that if you print the label the day of, as long as it gets there in time or even earlier, it doesn't end up affecting you, right? But it all depends, and I got to make sure I don't say right. Somebody said on the last podcast I said right too many times.
Yeah, so, we've had that comment on our podcast a handful of times.
I know, but it's been a long time. It's been like a couple hundred episodes.
Yeah.
Okay. What I find, though, is if you print it out and it gets there on time or earlier, you do not get a defect. But that all counts also on how many items you sell. So if you're selling, you know, maybe, 50 items a week, and, you know, that's happening to about a quarter of them, then it's going to be obvious. But if you're selling, 100 to 200 items a week, and you have that one day where you weren't able to get 8, scanned in on time, you should be okay. You should be okay. And I'm not advocating that anybody do that. I'm just letting you know, if worse comes to worse, there's that. There's also the ability where you can go to those kiosks that are inside and you can self-scan. But it does show on the tracking that it was a self-scan or something like that, that it's not like official tracking. So how are things going for you though, Mike? And I'll talk more about mine, but I just want to see how you're doing first.
Yeah, I mean, things are going pretty good. We've got the sales are starting to come in, those Q4 Christmas sales. And I've actually started selling Christmas items, which is pretty awesome because Christmas items are one of those things we've talked about in the past that they can sell year round. There's various reasons they sell year round. A lot of times they'll sell into Q1, so January, February. People are putting away their Christmas decorations. They realize something broke. They're trying to replace an ornament. They're trying to replace a piece to a manger, or they realize somebody else had a really cool sweater that they wanted. And so sometimes those Christmas things will sell early on in the year or at random times. But the reality is most of your holiday and Christmas items are going to sell around the holiday or whenever that thing is. So if it's Halloween, if it's Christmas, if it's Valentine's Day, those items tend to sell much closer to the holiday. It's very seasonal. And just like you walk into a store, you go into Walmart or Target, you're going to see the seasonal items coming up. And then when that season's done, they don't keep Christmas up all year long because they'd lose money on that. People aren't buying that stuff all year long in the same quantities. So one of the things that's a bit of a bummer when you've got a lot of holiday items is if it doesn't sell that year, you're sitting on it, right? There's some things where it's like, hey, if I bought a cool water bottle that I'm trying to sell, or I bought a VCR, if it didn't sell this month, there's a good chance it'll sell next month. If I'm competitively priced, but when it comes to Christmas stuff, if you have that still in your inventory at the end of the season, you're kind of like, well, it's another year that this is going to be sitting in that tote, or it's going to be sitting up on that shelf, taking up space. And unless you're willing to do what those retail stores do and just clearance those items, which a lot of times it's not worth it, right? Because if you've got some really good Department 56 stuff that didn't sell, you really don't want to clearance it. You want to wait to get top dollar for it, but then it's just sitting and waiting. So whenever I'm selling, like this year already, I've sold some ugly sweaters. I've sold some other, like some Department 56 stuff. It's like exciting to know I don't have to look at this stuff for another year. Like finally it's out of my inventory and it's gone. So that might be a sign though, that when you're in that holiday season, it might actually be worthwhile dropping the price a little bit to liquidate those items. Not so much that you're clearancing them out, but do you really want to sit on that tote full of Department 56 for another year? Or are you willing to drop those prices so that they're going to sell this year and you can kind of move on with your life, get some more inventory, kind of get going? So I think little sales and or auctions when it comes to holiday stuff might be a valuable thing. The other thing too is I used to not be a big like Christmas decoration person. I mean, inside the house, my wife always decorates, but I've been over the years getting more and more into the Christmas spirit. And I think about all of the items that I've purchased and sold, like outdoor decorations, or that I've passed on at garage sales. And I've started to buy more things to decorate my house, but I realized like the outside, it's expensive. Like when you buy new, if you're going on Amazon, you're going to Walmart, you're trying to get those blow up inflatables, you're trying to get those blow mold, manger things, all those things, it costs quite a bit of money. And so I've kind of shifted now to saying like, you know what, I really do see the benefit of picking those things up and reselling them, because, you know, when people want them, they're going to pay less money for them if they can, so you're going to sell them. But then you could also start building your own decorations. I mean, not everybody's going to be doing that. Like right now, I know it's super early, but I already put up some Christmas decorations. I haven't got my lights up yet.
Good for you.
It's way early. I know it's too early, but Thanksgiving comes so late this year that if you wait till the end, man, you don't really get to enjoy those decorations. So my plan is,
I just noticed it on the calendar.
That's right? I think like the 28th or something. Yeah. So it's coming pretty late this year. So, yeah, I'm excited just because part of reselling, part of one of the reasons I do this is I'm able to get stuff for myself too, right? Like when I'm at garage sales, I'm at thrift stores. And so now that I have in my mind, you know what, I do want to kind of build my own front yard decoration stuff over the time, maybe not all at once, but now I have another thing to be excited for when I'm at garage sales and thrift stores. Even if I find something that might not necessarily be a hot seller, I could still be purchasing things for me, because you find Christmas stuff all year long when you're at garage sales. You find holiday stuff all the time. So I'm excited to have one more thing to be looking out for myself. And, you know, that's again, one of the benefits of doing reselling is you get to see so many things and slowly build your own collections with whatever hobby you're in, and it's a pretty cool thing.
Let me real quick, can I counter something though that you said?
Sure.
I would argue that yes, Christmas stuff, like if you want it out, like now is the time to sell it. But also January for me, I sell a lot of Christmas stuff, and I think what happens is people reevaluate what they have, and they go, you know what? For example, nativity scenes. All the time, I sell replacement parts during that time because, you know, I don't know, you have a situation like I remember my son a few years ago stole one of the lambs from the nativity scene at somebody's house, and I didn't find out till months later. I'm pretty sure they went online and they found the lamb, or you know, they had an outdoor, you know, blow mold that were great, and you know, a coyote got a hold of it. I don't know, something happened and they want to replace it. And so yes, people buy it now, which is we're going to talk about in one of our hustles a week, but realize people are trying to just also figure out and plan for next year, and January is still a good time. And I would say, yeah, between February and May, it's kind of tough to sell those items. Summer, I do sell a lot of those items because people are already planning, but you do what you need to do. As Mike and I have said before, there's no better time to sell stuff than Q4, right? You may get an offer and never see that offer again for maybe a whole nother year if you don't accept it at that point in time. So that was my counter to you. I know you had more to talk about.
That's good. Yeah, I did mention that though at the beginning. I did say January can be a good time.
I am. Yeah, sorry
I did. So rewind, listen to the podcast. If you guys are listening right now, or if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. Tell Orlando he needs to listen to Mike while he's talking. Just kidding. So yeah, and then also with upcoming breaks coming up, with Thanksgiving break coming up, with Christmas break coming up for me at school. I'm a full-time teacher, so reselling is my part-time job. And I've had a lot of success on Fridays at the Amazon return store that's nearby me. And I just haven't been able to go Fridays because I work now. And I thought I'd be okay with that, missing those Friday days and kind of switching back just to garage sales. But I'm really starting to miss that store. So I'm excited to have a few weeks over, the next couple of months where I can go on Fridays, get those days when they first open up, all the good stuff is out in the bins. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I wanted to share something that came up in the Discord. One of our listeners shared in the Discord, and I won't give the exact numbers because I lost it here. I don't know if he wants the exact numbers to be out, but so it's Akatuka. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Is that how you pronounce it? The AKA 2K?
Yeah. Oh, phenomenal reseller.
Yeah, Akatuka.
I always read it AK2. Like, I don't try to pronounce it out.
I think it's Akatuka. Let us know if you're listening, Akatuka.
Or you could have just said somebody in our Discord.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a cool story. I wanna kind of shout him out here on this. So, anyways, he was talking about reselling, and he's been a part-time on eBay for 4 years. And so what he did is he started investing the money. So he had like a small initial amount that he put into Robinhood, getting some investments. And then he's pretty much put every bit of profit that he's gotten off eBay for the last 4 years into stocks, right? He's been watching the markets, putting things in, and we haven't been in like the best bull run over the last 4 years. So the fact that he's still having great returns and the amount of money that he's currently got in his portfolio is just insane. And he mentioned that going on the current rate that he's going, he's already looking at being a millionaire by the time he's 41. And then he again talked about the idea of just living below your means and then investing and kind of just keeping that money going. It's just, those are two powerful compounding, opportunities that we have as resellers. And when I read through that, I was really encouraged. And I kind of thought like, okay, this last couple of years, I've definitely bettered my position in life. Reselling has helped kind of fill in some gaps here and there. Kind of in a groove now at work, but I've kind of let reselling just kind of, it's just maintaining, right? Like I've got a consistent flow of money coming in. I'm still sourcing, still listing, but it's pretty much been consistent. I haven't really tried to grow or expand. And I'm at a point now where I'm like, you know what? I know for a fact you don't hit big targets, you don't hit big goals unless you aim for them, right? You got to aim, you got to have almost audacious goals. You got to be kind of obnoxious with what it is you're trying to do, because then you have focus and it's clearly, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And that could work at a micro level where you say something like, I'm going to list 25 items a day, or you're being very specific and things like that. But I love, the idea of setting a huge goal that you're aiming for, and then that allows you to figure out the things you need to do. So I don't think I'm in a position to necessarily be a millionaire by the time I'm 41. But maybe I could set a goal like that. But right now, my goal is, I'm 1 year into a 30-year mortgage, a little over a year into a 30-year mortgage. And my goal is to have my house paid off in 5 years, right? So I'm not doing the 6 months thing, to get the house paid off in 6 months. But I am going still, I think a pretty big goal, right? Like have a 30-year mortgage paid off in 5 years. And the only way that's going to happen is if I really increase reselling. And it doesn't have to be a lot. Like I've started to crunch the numbers, and I'm looking at just some small increases here and there on a few things. And I could really be in a place to do that. And even though, and this goes to show, like, so I'm setting this goal, 5 years, pay off my house. But in reality, I already know within the next like 3 to 4 years, I'd like to move to another house. But that doesn't change my goal of having this one paid off in 5 years. Because if I get to year 3 of getting it paid off in 5 years, and I decide, you know what, I'm ready to move out of this house, maybe sell it, move to a different house, different neighborhood, maybe a better house, I'm going to be walking away with crazy value on this house. I'm going to have a lot of equity in it. And so having that goal, your goals can shift as time, changes. But if I have this trajectory going, there's going to be no downside to it, right?
Yeah.
And because unfortunately my interest rates are so high, like I had to buy at the time that I bought, and there was no other option. So I didn't get lucky enough to get that 2% interest rate that, a lot of people got. I'm sitting over 7% right now. So I was tossing around that idea of, okay, should I do what Akatuka's doing here and like really just trying to invest? Because I think I could probably get a 7% return annually on investments. I think that's not that difficult. I think 7 to 10% is a pretty reasonable amount of return if you're investing. You could definitely do more than that if you're lucky. You could also do worse than that. Like the more risky you are, you have better chances of having huge success or losses. So, but I think 7 to 10% is a pretty reasonable amount. And so my thought is, if I'm going to be getting 7% return on an investment, I would rather be dumping that into my house because I'm already paying 7% interest, and it'll basically be the same thing. It's like I'm getting a 7% return on investment, but I'm also building that equity in this house. So to me, that seems like the better way to go on this. And so I'm going to really use reselling over the next few years to just dial in the things that I needed to get dialed in to make that happen. And I think that's going to allow me to have that focus and drive that I need to really get momentum and get going. And I love too, he mentioned that he was doing some listing and he was listening to our intro song that we play on the live episode, as a motivation for him. So it works, man.
I got to tell you, it's the same thing I've been saying since the beginning, that reselling gives you options, right? It causes you to think bigger. And I had mentioned, I remember during the crypto bull run of 2021, and how things were just crazy because I was in a condo. My rent was really low. I didn't have a lot of expenses, so I was putting a lot of eBay money into it. And it was great. It wasn't great when I didn't sell on time, but it was great while it lasted. But I've been able to take care of a lot of things. I never would have thought about investing. I mean, I was able to, for example, buy my son's car because of money I invested from reselling into Tesla, and then that money in Tesla went up in value. And by the way, if you haven't been tracking Tesla, it's gone up $140, $150 per stock in the last month. So, reselling allows you to do those things, and good. I'm glad that AK2, I forget the last one, is doing well. And I remember he was like, I don't want to flex on here. And I'm like, I don't see it as a flex. I see it as a way to show people, hey, this is what's possible, right? This is what we can do as resellers, especially as, we're paying our bills and we start making a little bit extra money, right? We have different places we can put. So, yeah, I do appreciate Akatuka, or AKA2KA, as you would say, or I would say, for sharing that. All right, so how are things going for me? Because I know that was the next question. And
so Orlando, how are things going for you, man?
It's going really well. Now, when I say really well, I don't think they're Q4 well, but things feel normal again. I can't think of the last time that things felt normal. I kind of had mentioned this on the last podcast, on our live that we had, that it felt that things were picking up. And I do believe now that maybe things have recovered and things are only going to improve. It's one of those things that I forgot what it felt like to have a day where you're having the cha-chings every hour on the hour, and then you're accepting offers all the time. It feels good, right? It keeps you motivated. And I always encourage people when things are slow, like, keep listening, because one day it will pay off. It may take a month, it may take 2, it may take 6, but it does happen. So it's been really taking off. I have not sourced still, but it's been about 3 weeks. I'm still sourcing my death piles, and I did not realize how much stuff I had. I had mentioned this last podcast, but I am in shock about how much stuff I have that has not been listed. And so it's been great. Now, I will be going to garage sales this Saturday. I finally need to just get out there. I need a source. I need to find treasure. But it's been amazing. Somebody in the Discord had shown that you think you have death piles. I have a death barn, right? And it's just a whole barn full of stuff that they have not listed. We all got to be careful about that, right? I mean, the great thing during the scenario in 2020 was when we couldn't leave our homes, was that all of us that had death piles, we were golden, right? We were good to go. We had items for the next several weeks, but we're not in that scenario right now. And every single item that is not listed is an item that you're not making money on. You may be even losing money. There's some things that I find sometimes in my death piles that, had I listed it a year ago, I may have made 25% more, but it's out of fashion. It's not trending, and I'm not going to make as much money, or the market's flooded, or whatever it is. So as soon as you source it, the best thing is to make sure you have it listed. Now, there's something I've been doing that I don't know if this is why things have changed, but I'd like to share it, and people can do with it what they want. So I'd mentioned, Cacique Store had advised on Instagram for people to do end and sell similar, but wait 12 hours before they post those items that they're doing the end and sell similar on eBay. I took it a step further. I did end sell similar, and then I posted it 12 hours, but then I wanted every item to be listed 1 minute per item, right? So if there's 25 items, it would take 25 minutes. And that's an easy option that you have on there. You can kind of test it out. Then I said, you know what? I want to try something even more. I'm just going to end and sell similar, whatever's on the first page of my listings, which is about 200 items. So I've been doing that to 200 items every night for the past week. This past week I was traveling. So I didn't do any listing. I did 0 listing, not much. All I was doing is accepting offers, and my sales still took off. And I think part of it is, I don't know, maybe for now the algorithm gets tricked into believing that you're listing 250 items a day. I don't know what it is, but I've been doing this consistently. And again, I have a big store, right? I have close to 3,000 items, so I'm able to do that. If you do the math, I could do that for 30 days, right? I could do that. Am I wrong about that? Right? I'm right about that, right? No. I could do that 15 days, sorry. I could do that for 15 days where I do the end until similar, right? So the question is, what's going to happen, if as I keep doing this, is this eventually going to just die out, within a month or two? I don't know. But I've been happy to get the sales. But I do recommend, doing that space out where you list items every minute when you do the sell similar and just schedule it that way. Because I do think it helps, especially if you're away. And it's been great. It's been great. All I can do is just say, now I feel as like eBay is on my side. I think about all those people on e-commerce bites in the comments and all the negativity, and eBay is not what it used to be, and all that. I understand how people get to that place. I really do. Because, if you're always sourcing and you're listing for so long and you've only seen a dip in sales, you've seen a dip in 30%, 40%, 50%, and that's never recovered, you can get a really negative place. So I encourage people to stay away from those forums. I encourage people to stay in their lanes and stay focused in their stores, and always try to find new ways to improve. Make sure you follow the guidance of eBay, as long as it's guidance that, you trust the individual. For example, I've been steered incorrectly by some eBay guidance, but you can definitely adapt and be successful on eBay, despite things slowing down here and there. All right, before we move on, I wanted to share about My Reseller Genie. My Reseller Genie is an incredible tool. Allows you to do bookkeeping without stressing about importing all your stuff all the time. It can automatically import all your eBay shipping fees, promoted listing fees, any fees that you have. It allows you to track your inventory. It's a bookkeeping software made by resellers for resellers. I believe it's an incredible price, but you haven't checked it out. Check it out. You can use our code Pure Hustle, and you'll get 15% off. Sorry, 15% off the first month. You get 15% off the first month. Use our code Pure Hustle, and I'm pretty sure once you sign up, you're gonna go, this is pretty valuable, and I'm gonna stick with it. So I encourage people to do that. If you've been using My Reseller Genie, you want to just comment how it's helped you, let us know in the comments. All right, you have any random stories?
So yeah, kind of. We've talked before in the past about if you've got a 9-to-5, you got a normal job, sometimes it's worth saving up some days that you could take off, especially during Q4 time, to do sourcing, to really get caught up maybe on listing and or packing, shipping stuff. And you can be potentially a lot more profitable taking a day off from work, especially if it's a paid day off from work. Take a vacation day, take a couple of vacation days, and then go out and do that crazy sourcing, or get a bunch of stuff listed, and you could be a lot more profitable doing that. And I was thinking about that going into this next week. So I talked last year, I found it, and I found it late. There was this giant at the big expo center here we have in town. The local library does the Friends of the Library thing, and they have a huge sale that happens every year. It's an annual sale. And the very first day of the sale is on a Thursday, and it is $10, I think, to get admission, and the books are, I believe, only $1 a piece. And that first day, I mean, all of the good books are obviously going to be there, so it's worth paying that $10 to get in. We went on the last day, and it was fill up a bag for $1, but you're kind of just at the dregs at that point, whatever's left on the tables, which there was still a ton of books. There was more books than I could have possibly looked through in a day, but most of the good stuff has already been snagged. And so part of me was like, do I take a day off and go do this Friends of the Library sale? Because I know I can make way more money buying a bunch of really profitable books that one day. But then the other thing that we haven't taken into account when it comes to that is the responsibility at that 9 to 5, right? I'm at a time of the year right now. We just hired a new person in my department. We've got testing coming up here pretty soon for some makeup retesters for state testing. I've got a lot of things going on at work, and I can't feasibly take a day off, right? I know for a fact, so I have to now wrestle with this idea of, if I take a day off and go do this Friends of the Library sale, I'm probably going to make $400 or $500 more than I would make just from being at work that day, maybe even more than that. But the reality is there's that responsibility of, if I take a day off, it's really going to hurt the team. It's not going to be good for my students. And so I have to weigh that into consideration too. So I'm not going to end up taking that day off. I'm probably going to wait until that Saturday. It's still pretty good. So it's free to get in on Saturday. So I saved that $10. I still think I'm going to be profitable. I think if I go Saturday and Sunday, I'm still probably going to be able to, make quite a bit of money, but I'm going to miss out on a lot. And sometimes you got to be okay with that too, right? You kind of have to weigh, you've got not only just profit, because that profit's important, but then there's also other responsibilities, right? Like, for instance, that Saturday morning, we got a birthday party for my son. So I'm not going to be going until later in the evening. So again, I'm missing opportunity to get some sourcing done, but you really have to weigh out other priorities that you have in life. And so the money from sourcing can be really important. And if it's your full-time gig, sometimes you got no choice, right? Sometimes you got to say no to certain things in order to make it happen. But I guess it's just encouragement. If you're a part-time seller, as much as that is good advice, to, if you can, take vacation days in Q4 to really capitalize on sourcing opportunities. It's also not something that you need to feel bad about if you have other priorities that might come above just pure profit margins, right? So other things can be important, whether it's family, whether it's other responsibilities you have at work. So it's just a reminder to people that if you can, it's worthwhile to do. But at the same time, you have to weigh out other options. Now, that being said, I know a lot of people who are in 9 to 5s that they feel they're married to their job in a way where they have so much more loyalty to their employer than their employer will ever show them, right? And so they feel guilty taking days off. I know a lot of people like this that, I mean, my dad is a guy like this. He would work at a company and he'd get a job offer for a better company. And instead of just jumping on it and taking the job offer, it's like, well, I've got to give my 2 weeks notice to this company that I'm currently at. And he's only worked there for a few months and he hates the company he's at, but he won't leave without the 2 weeks notice. And it's like, sometimes you got to do what's best for you, right? You know, sometimes you got to just say like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm out. You guys have been poor employers for me. I've got a better opportunity. You really just have to weigh out like, what's the best thing to do. Sometimes you do need to prioritize a 9 to 5, but other times you could say, you know what, this is maybe more important for me and my family is to take a vacation day. I'm not going to recommend calling in sick if you're not sick, but take those discretionary days. Yeah, take those discretionary days as you need, if you can. But also, if you can't, don't feel bad about it. As long as you're making a good decision.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things. I can tell you story upon story of people that gave their heart and soul to a place, thinking I'm going to make myself indispensable, right? There's no way they're gonna get rid of me. But I'm telling you, people are always replaceable, always replaceable. And to me, I made my own choice, but the reality is, I never saw myself being in a place where I had to make a choice to leave a place, right? And so, and I can tell other people that waited too long, and they would say, "Hey, I wish I had done this 2 years ago." And the beauty about eBay. Again, the beauty about eBay, and I'm actually going to throw us out. I'm going to be on a podcast next week. It's called the Gold Paper Podcast with Max, the book reseller. And it's going to be a bunch of us teachers and administrators who left education. We might get Tim the Slim on there. So before we get him on our podcast, by the way, Tim the Slim, believe is going to be on our podcast next week. Stay tuned for that. If not next week, the week after. But it's nice that eBay gives you that ability that no matter what, you can always make things happen, right? It may be tough. I don't encourage people to just up and quit their jobs, or, sometimes you need that 2 weeks, right? You don't want to burn bridges either, right? It's kind of, you got to read the room. You got to see what works best for you. But anyways, no, I appreciate you sharing all that. I just wanted to add a little bit more to it.
That's good. That's good. All right, what about you? Got any random stories?
I don't, eBay messages are always funny to me because most of the time they're informative, right? They just want to know, hey, what's the measurement on the heel here? Or, what about, this item? Is it this? But I get haters, right? And I'm sure the big YouTubers, they get far more hate than I do. But it always cracks me up with haters because the energy that is spent to message somebody, hate, just drives me crazy, right? And listen, if you sent me a hateful comment, I'm not inviting you to, but I will never respond to you. I will never give you the time of day. You're a waste of my life if I ever message you back. I learned this lesson, a few years ago. Like emails, right? Mike and I get emails all the time about, hey, would you do this brand deal here? Or would you be on this podcast here? Not that we're super important. Most of the time, they're emailing everybody who has a podcast, not just
it's kind of spammy. A lot of them are spammy, yeah.
Yeah, they're spammy. But what I learned is, at first I used to be like nice guy, and I used to respond back and be like, hey, thanks so much for reaching out. Unfortunately, it's not it's not the right fit. Thanks so much. And then I would send it, and then it wouldn't end, right? That person, right? In sales, I guess there's this, no is still a yes, I guess, for some people in sales. And so I just ignore people. Even when I was a school administrator, I would get emails and I would get people coming to the front office saying, hey, have you thought about this? And I would tell the front office, I said, unless I tell you that I want to speak to them, be nice and just say, hey, thanks for coming. We'll reach out to you. That's it. I will not go out there. I will not shake your hand. I will not speak to you unless I think it's worth my time. And I think the same thing, I warn people on eBay, especially people that are quick to, get heated about stuff, just play it cool, because, these people that there's obviously something not right with them. I got this message. It was over a toy car, and it's priced at $18. And this person said, do some blank research. It's a $10 car on a mint card. You have a $2 car here, genius. And I'm like, over a toy car that I have maybe overpriced by $8, this person spent the time. And I can read you messages upon messages about this. And, there's a part of me that does want to troll and go, hey, how many items have you sold? Oh, 100? Yeah. Who are you talking to here? Right? I mean, I could do that, but why would I waste my time? Why would I waste my time on a podcast talking about this? Because it's fun on the podcast. I enjoy sharing this on the podcast. This is enjoyable to me. But, I also get a lot of other people that are helpful. I have a bunch of Loot Crate pins, and somebody messaged me and said, hey, by the way, check out my store. I have some of the Loot Crate pins listed for $50, some for $70. And I sell this stuff all the time. I'm like, oh, thanks so much. That person, I will communicate back, and I will thank them and appreciate it. They said, great for reselling, best wishes. All right, so find those people in the eBay messages that are worth your time. Some things aren't worth your time. For example, I'll get, I'll have the dimensions on a shirt and everything, and I'll get, questions like, could you measure, the point from the collar to the top of the shoulder? And then can you measure the part from mid-arm to whatever? And it's these crazy questions, and I just ignore it. Now, one day when eBay does kick in this algorithm of, how fast you respond, maybe I will respond. But understand, you don't have to respond to every message. If you're brand new, only do what's worth your time. So that is my random story for me to share here. All right, nice. But we do have some incredible hustles of the week we need to talk about here.
That's right.
Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week.
Yeah. Hustle of the week. All right, so our first one, I'm really excited about this one. So this comes from Suck It Up Buttercup from our Discord. So kind of funny about that name. I don't know where my son first heard it. We heard it somewhere. He said it was on a TV show or something. So we said that to him one time about something. We're like, suck it up, Buttercup. And he like had a little bit of a meltdown. He's like, I'm not a Buttercup. So that's kind of been like a running joke. When he starts getting whiny, it's like, don't be a Buttercup. But anyways, we got Suck It Up Buttercup on our Discord. So he says, after Mike mentioned the Canon T6 as a BOLO on the podcast not too long ago, I set up a Facebook Marketplace alert. Someone was selling their kit with 2 lenses for $100. I offered them $75, which they accepted. Listed and sold a Canon Rebel T6 camera and lenses at $299 on eBay in under 24 hours. What a great sale! I mean, I'm excited. Right? I'm excited that a couple of reasons. One, that I mentioned that and that you were able to pick that up, and two, that you're a member of our Discord and you were able to get benefit. You know, because we have our Discord, which what is it, $5.55. So $5.55 a month. And when you hear things, and the BOLOs and the hustles that we share on the podcast are a fraction of what's being shared on the Discord. So, if every once in a while, if a couple times a year, you're able to make a big sale like this, just from some information you were able to pick up, what a cool story. I love that you were able to find something based off of something I said. So good job. And I also love that you offered 75, right? Like they wanted 100. You were willing to go, hey, what about 75? Which they accepted, right? And again, anybody could say no. They could say, no, I'm firm on 100. So it's not like you're being shady. I mean, it'd be messed up to say like, I'll give you $1 for it, right? But there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, in order for you to be profitable, you probably had to drive out and get it. You had to do a little bit of research. You probably had to test it to make sure it worked and look at the lenses. You had to list it. You had to pack it, and cameras and lenses can be a bit of a pain to pack. So that extra $25 could be what made it worth your time. So I love that you're also willing to do a little bit of bargaining there.
No, very, very nice. And under 24 hours, can't beat that. You just can't beat that. All right, this next one is actually a follow-up email with a new hustle of the week. So several weeks ago, we had Nick Osborne, who's a brand new reseller who had gone full-time because they had lost their job. And they came across a bunch of sealed Star Wars figures from 79 to 83, right? And then about 74 loose figures, another 20 sealed, and they paid $1,400. So this is somebody that just started reselling full-time, and they took a leap. And I had mentioned how sometimes it's those leaps that validate for you that you can still, you can do this full-time, that it's very possible. And so update, and then I wanted to share the other hustle of the week that they had. Said, small update on my last hustle of the week. I've sold about half of the action figures, and I'm well into profit. I will be sending some to be graded and still have a few to list. Right? So they turned that $1,400. They estimated that they're going to make $7,000. So I'm guessing they've made at least over $1,400. They're probably in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. And I'm pretty sure with items getting graded, they may break $7,000 on this. So never hurts. Now, here's another one. I wanted to share this because I think this is good for new resellers to see. Said, while out of town visiting my mom, she asked if I wanted to go to a thrift store. I told her, of course. I never turned down a chance to go sourcing. We went to a thrift store. I saw multiple racks with Red Wing. I should have looked up FR coveralls, but do you know what that means? FR coveralls?
No.
I don't know. You can ask ChatGPT real quick while I do this. Red Wing FR coveralls, and decided to ask the manager if they would do a better price if I bought them all. I bought 150 of these coveralls for $1,000 and flipped them in 1 week for $2,000 and a few other stragglers. The lesson I learned here is sometimes it's better to take the quick flip for a quick double up rather than 150 transactions to make more money. And I think that's very smart, because not only did you make that quick $1,000, or, after fees, probably like $800, $900, but you also saved yourself a lot of time. Right now, is it possible that maybe you would have made $2,000 to $3,000? But, in the end, you're able to cash flow this. And think about all the time spent, right, packing those 150. And I don't know what FR coveralls are, but my guess is they are, here, I'm going to look it up. I really want to know. But my guess is it's not something you could just put in a padded envelope. It'll take some time. So let's see what AI tells us. Flame resistant overalls. Flame resistant. See, there's no way I would have figured that out on my own. So yeah, that's and not only that, let's add one more thing. you negotiated with the thrift store. And a lot of people don't do that. But some thrift stores, I would say even the store that shall not be named, even though they have a policy to not do that, some managers just want to see stuff moving, and they're willing to make that happen. So nice work, Nick. Nice quick 1,000 that you made, plus the money that you're making on your stars figures. Well done. Well done.
All right. So our next one comes from Bill, and this is a Gmail. So yeah, once again, guys, we accept emails. We accept Discord messages, Instagram DMs, Facebook messages, phone calls. Any way you want to send us a hustle of the week, we'd be glad to share them. So this one says, "Hey guys, love the podcast. Keep up the great work. Here is my hustle of the week. I'm building a relationship with an interior designer, and this is the second lead I've gotten from her. One of her clients was remodeling a large detached garage and was going to toss a bunch of junk that was in there. I got a call to come pick up the pile. I got this Ertl pedal tractor and a couple of other boxes of old tools. She had no idea what to charge me, so I, after some discussion, threw out $20 and she took it without hesitation.
Wow.
I had no idea what this item would bring because it was in a pretty rough shape, but I knew the name Ertl is desirable. Also, I had no idea how I'd ship it because it's so big. After some research, I came up with the price of $493.93 and $200 shipping. So this was a vintage Ertl pedal tractor, and it sold for full asking price within hours of listing. Shipping was a drag, and I might have to figure out freight because I was pushing my time limit here. The box size was 43 by 30 by 22 and weighs 32 pounds. Ooh, that's I mean, Ertl is a great brand. If you could pick up that stuff, that's pretty good. And the fact that you're willing to go big and you weren't afraid of that, it could be a learning experience for shipping. That's for sure.
But he's okay on the shipping because on UPS, I believe you can be up to 165 inches on length and width. Like the girth of it could be 165 inches and you should be good. So it seems it'd be okay. And you got to be careful because, 1 inch can get you into freight. 1 inch can cost you several $100s more. And I'll never forget, I had this huge photo enhancer thing. You put the slide on the top and then it shines it on the bottom. I don't know what those are. I forget what it was called. But it costs about $120 to ship. And I remember when I got to the UPS store, I said, "Hey, can you double check the measurements? I want to make sure it's all good." And it was 2 inches longer than it needed to be. And it wasn't because the item, it's just because the way I had the box. So I just ended up just taking, a blade to the top of the box, chopping it off and taping it really tight again. And it fell under it and I saved, several $100s. So not only that, the fact that you found an Ertl, and if we had the pictures, it's rusted out, there's patina, it's beautiful. Like it looks vintage, it looks great. So just because something is, all messed up or it looks like it's trash or whatever, if it's Ertl or it's a quality product, like it's still sellable, right? People like it for decorations. People maybe need it for a movie set, whatever it is. It's still something that is worth your time to pick it up. So that was really good.
It's a good one.
All right, and now we got our fan favorite, or at least our podcast favorite.
Yep, we got Tim the Slim calling in with a hustle of the week. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, Mike and Orlando? This is Tim. I go by Tim the Slim on the Discord. I hear you need some hustles of the week, so I thought I'd call this one in. I love to dabble in vintage audio, and I'm by no means an expert, but I know enough to occasionally part out speakers, and that's exactly what I did this last week with a pair of Pioneer CS99A speakers. That's a pair of large wooden speaker cabinets that sits on the floor. They sell for around $600 to $1,200 plus shipping, depending on condition. I paid $50 at a yard sale for a less than perfect pair, and they were decent enough condition, but one of the center cones was crushed on one of the mid-range speakers, also rattling inside one of the boxes. Some of the tube coverings came off the circuit board. I did not want to risk a less than perfect sale because, people can get picky, and when you're shipping it out for about $200, these huge speakers, you get a return on that, it kind of just kills everything. So I decided to take them apart, and within 24 hours, I had sold one subwoofer for $175, the 4 mid-range speakers for a total of $225, and one of the pairs of tweeters for $30. So already a little over $400 before fees, a couple more parts to go. I figure after shipping and fees, the whole thing will be about $50. in the 600 to 800. Now, just like anything else, do your research. A lot of the old wood grain speaker cabinets cannot be shipped profitably, and even locally will be a pain on them, but there are gems in every niche. That's it for me. Thanks for the content you keep pushing out.
Man, what a great one. I love that idea too, because speakers are definitely one of those things that they can be huge, right? They're just too big to be profitable to ship. But if you're an audiophile, you're into that vintage audio stuff. I mean, I grew up, I had a family friend that they were just audiophile freaks. They had rooms full of speakers and receivers and all the record players, and they were always buying parts. And they were actually part of a forum back when the internet was still new, right? And the cool thing, if you were in forums, and before there were Facebook groups, it was like you'd get in a forum and they would do meetups and stuff. And one of the things that they would do a lot was buy parts to things. And sometimes they would buy an aftermarket part, like, hey, I need to replace the tweeters or the subwoofers or the mid-range in this speaker. And so they would occasionally buy like an aftermarket one to replace. But the reality is, like, if you've got a good pair of speakers, you want the originals. And so you could absolutely take just the speakers themselves out, especially if you're looking at things like mid-range and tweeters. You can sell those for quite a bit less and ship those for quite a bit less than it would be to ship an entire speaker. And if they're in good condition, even if the rest of the box is beat up, it's trash. And like he said, he's got a couple of them that were blown, the cones were messed up. And even those, like, people will buy speakers that have cones that are blown out.
Really?
If the rubber is off the cones, because you can buy replacement rubbers. So if you've got a good driver, I mean, that's what they're looking for. If the driver is still in good condition, and it's the original one, they can replace one that maybe actually had an issue with theirs. You could definitely make a lot of profit on that. I mean, I'm just even thinking with like my Forerunner, like I'm planning on selling it. I'm probably going to end up selling it for about $3,000, which is quite a bit less than I was hoping for. But if I really wanted to take the time, I could start selling pieces of my Forerunner. Like, I could take up both the mirrors on the outside, sell those. Sure. I could sell the inside mirror, because a lot of those parts you can get aftermarket for some things. But like center console, I took out my center console to put in a new speaker, a new receiver in there, and a few of the pieces broke on one of them. So I was like, okay, well, how much is just this one little piece? And you can't really get them 3D printed very easily, but you can buy like that piece off of eBay. You can get that piece off of other stores. And a lot of places want like $300 just for that one piece. I've got so many pieces of trim in that car that are in good shape. Take that trim off, sell that, right? So don't be afraid of parting things out. I think that's a great strategy. And you could take something that seems like potentially a bad buy and just part out pieces, and you'd be doing really, really well.
Interesting. No, I haven't done speaker part outs, but that there's a lot of items you can do that with, right? So I always think about that. And sometimes items, right, that are massive, you're like, I'm going to ship that out. Like, you could definitely part out. Some things you got to part whole, you got to sell whole, like that Ertl truck, right? But some other things, like, yeah, I'm glad that Tim the Slim shared that. So
yeah, I mean, and not even necessarily with that Ertl truck. I mean, I think it'd probably take you forever to sell the whole thing. But let's say enough of it was in bad shape that you couldn't sell it as is, but like the pedals were fine.
Yeah.
You could sell the pedals for just that model. You could sell just the handles for that model. You could sell just like the front wheel, you could sell the different pieces to that, because somebody might have, hey, my pedal broke or my handlebar broke, and I could buy a new handle for $50 for my Ertl instead of having to buy a new one for $500 plus $200 shipping. So you could potentially even part out those things. I mean, it could take you 3, 4, 5 years to get all of the pieces of it sold, but you could be already well into profit after just a couple of pieces selling.
I think of that, I do that all the time with like train sets. Like, I used to sell whole train sets, and I used to do the whole, like, put the tracks together and shoot video of it working. I don't even do that anymore because it's so much time. It's time consuming. Instead, I'll just part it out, and I'll make more money actually doing that. So, all right, thank you to everybody for sharing your hustle of the week. Mike, what is your hustle of the week?
I mean, I don't have anything like huge like that.
Okay,
I will say I mentioned earlier selling some Christmas stuff. I sold. Now's the time to sell ugly sweaters. I had picked up an ugly sweater at a garage sale, and it was not like a actual vintage ugly sweater. It was like one of those ones you could get at like Target or something like that. but it was an OKC like football ugly sweater, and I picked it up at a garage sale for 50 cents, and I was able to sell it for, I think it was somewhere around $30 when it was all said and done. Okay. It sat in my inventory for a couple of years, and it's one of those things you picked up for 50 cents, and it doesn't take up much space, so I've kept it for that long. But it's kind of cool to go from 50 cents to $30, and it didn't take. I mean, shipping is super easy on those. You stick it in a poly bag and send it off. You're good to go. So that's one of those things that feels so good because it has been in my inventory for probably going on 2, maybe 3 years now.
And you can't beat that. Like, that's the normal reselling life. I think about these 2 items I picked up. I didn't put them on the Instagram story because I was like, I don't know how well these will do. I picked up a Chuck E. Cheese plush, a birthday plush. It was like Chuck E.'s birthday, whatever, and a pair of gloves, of fingerless gloves. I think that's what you call them. They were Nightmare Before Christmas gloves. I picked them up for 25 cents a piece. The Chucky doll plush sold for about close to $30, and the gloves sold for close to $30, right? So I turned $1 into 60, right? And I probably should have shared that, right? And I think sometimes we get in this mentality that it has to be these huge sales. But the reality is, especially if you're part-time, like having one of those sales is phenomenal. Like it's just good, right? It'll help you take care of a bill. It may help you invest money if you want to make some money in the stock market or crypto. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with that. So, all right. Hey,
what about you?
Well, before I move on to my hustle of the week, if you haven't been following us on social media, we are Pure Hustle Podcast on all platforms. Except for X, we are Pure Hustle Cast. If you haven't had a chance to shoot us an email about a hustle of the week or a bolo or just a question maybe you have, please send one to purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. That's purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you are listening to the podcast and you're like, hey, I'd like to call something in, you're welcome to 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. And also, if you're listening to the podcast and you haven't checked out our YouTube, come on over, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, click that bell notification whenever we go live so you can find us. And as always, grateful for all the iTunes reviews. Now, for whatever reason, we have not had a review since August. It's gone up. So if you'd like to help us out, let people know why you love the podcast, give us those 5 stars. I would greatly appreciate it. Now, not to say that we have not received reviews. We have received reviews. Because we're still at 4.8. We were at 4.9. I like to get us back to 4.9. But anyways, you can check us out there. But I really appreciate all your support. And the last thing here is, we mentioned this earlier, our Discord. If you want to have access to Discord for $5.55 a month, which is an amazing price, and especially in these times where, even with inflation, we're losing money, but we don't care. We just want people to join us because the more we can have in the Pure Hustle community, the more info, the more encouragement that takes place. So if you haven't signed up yet, go to patreon.com/Pure Hustle Podcast, sign up for $5.55 a month, or you can go to the link below, and you will not only have access to Discord, but you'll allow us to continue producing free content. We're 424 episodes in, plus all the other random videos that we've produced, all free because of, I don't know, I want to say viewers like you or supporters like you or some, like remember the old PBS, like we'll give you a tote bag, right? We won't give you the tote bag, but you'll have access to the Discord. So help us out on Patreon there. All right, my hustle of the week. A few weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, I walked into a neighborhood and I thought it was going to be one of those repeat garage sales, the people that are always selling stuff every week, and said it was a house next door. And I showed up, and I think I mentioned this on podcast. If I haven't, I showed up, and there was an entire blow mold nativity scene. Just everybody, Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, cows, donkeys, wise men, shepherds, like everybody. And everybody was ignoring it. All the resellers that were there, all the people sourcing, they just did nothing with it. And I knew there was money. So, they came, I saw the owner, and I'm like, hey, what are you thinking all these? And she's like, what about $20 for all these? And I was like, $20? Like, and then, my mind went there to, I mentioned this. Yeah. My mind went there like, do I negotiate this or do I just accept the good deal? Well, I decided to take the good deal. And I said, yeah, $20. Yeah, that's not a problem at all. And actually it was good because it was a family whose student I had in my class years ago. So it probably would have looked pretty bad had I, try to haggle that. I don't know. But in the end, right, I picked all those up, And it did take me a little while to list, just because I was being lazy, because you have to list it with the lights off, and you have to you have to figure out the shipping. But I spent $20. Okay, $20. I got 10 pieces. Okay, sold one piece within a week. I sold a cow, a vintage Empire blow mold Christmas nativity scene cow for $67.49 plus shipping. Shipping was $44. Right, so somebody spent over $100 on this one. And then last week I sold another one, and it had the box, but it was still vintage, for $121 plus $35 shipping. Right, so don't be afraid to charge that shipping, because if people want it. Actually, the feedback I got on the positive one, on the one that was a shepherd, somebody said, "This is perfect. Just this completes my collection. Thank you so much." And if you're scared about shipping out these blow molds, my recommendation to you is, grab 2 small or medium size U-Haul boxes. And what you do is you bubble wrap it. You put the paper, put the paper everywhere. Okay. And the packing, but not only do you wrap it in paper, but then not only wrap it in bubble wrap, but then after you put the bubble wrap, you put the boxes. And then if the boxes go on top of the other box, you have like double wall, right? If you have that double wall, you're good to go. If you have something with a box, I would recommend doing that. But the key thing is you want to make sure that you have enough packing paper around it, right? That it's very stuffed and it can't move. And if something if it falls, it's not going to break or anything. And you want to make sure it's double walled. And if it's double walled, you should be good to go, right? But make sure you have insurance if it's after a certain price point. But here's the thing. I have 8 others. So let's say I sell the other 8 others for $50 a piece. It's going to be crazy profit. So we'll see what happens. I anticipate I'm going to sell a lot of them before Christmas ends. But yeah, I'm just grateful, And the only reason we know about these is because people that listen to our podcast had shared these as a hustle of the week. Had no one shared it, I would not have known about it. All right, Mike, what are you looking forward to as we wind things down here?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I'm looking forward to some weeks off from my 9 to 5s that I can potentially get out to that Amazon return store on the big day. That'll be nice. And then also just really finalizing my plan, my goal for the next 5 years. There's nothing special about January 1st, but it is kind of nice to have set time limits, when you think of Q1, Q2, Q3, we have time frames that we're working in. So to kind of say okay, what do I need to do to make sure that, 5 years from now, kind of looking at maybe the start of January 2025, what do I need to get in place so that when January 1st, 2025 hits, I'm ready to just start the ball moving. And so I'm kind of looking forward to crunching those numbers, figuring out what really needs to happen, and then getting everything in place to make sure that I scale eBay to make that profit that I need to make. What about you?
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to going to garage sales, finally sourcing again. I'm really excited about this Q4. If things keep at this momentum, it's going to be a glorious Q4. And we've talked about how on Amazon that happens, but if this happens on eBay, and I think part of it too is what I've been sourcing, right? I don't source clothing very much or shoes very much anymore. It's pretty much all toys or vintage collectibles, and those items they keep selling. I mean, today I sold a Fisher Price Dr. toolkit, and I've sold some Skylanders, and I sold some Thomas the Train, and I've sold just all these different kinds of toys. I've sold a lot of manga. I really do think it's going to be a crazy Q4, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being on this YouTube channel, Gold Paper, being on their Gold Paper podcast and talking about reselling as a former full-time teacher. But here's the funny thing is I am slowly going to be moving here soon into the Bay Area, and so I'm looking forward to kind of just reevaluating all my inventory, condensing everything. Sometime in the middle of spring I should be out, and so I like to have everything ready to go, right? Because reselling will not end for me. Reselling is something that I will always do, whether it's at a full-time capacity or a part-time capacity. No matter where in the country I am, I will always be reselling. And I think once you're a reseller and once you realize what you can do, you'll never stop being a reseller, right? I mean, even now, sometimes you see these people that show up on Instagram. It's been 2 years. They decided to do real estate or do something different, and they're like, "Hey, by the way, just let you know, I'm still reselling. Like, I still have that itch to go out there and find items that I can sell for good money. So just kind of looking forward to organizing. You know, it's funny, the other day in one of my totes, I found a whole Sega Dreamcast console and a couple games. And I'm like, why have I not listed this? Like, why has this been in? I think I sourced that maybe in the old condo I was in before this 4 years ago.
And what a cruddy console anyways, you know?
But it sells.
Hey, if it sells.
It sells really well. It sells really well. So I know Dreamcast wasn't that bad. I liked it. I liked the Dreamcast.
I hated the Dreamcast. My cousin had one and I always thought it was lame.
Do you think it was worse than Neo Geo? Remember Neo Geo? Are you
Yeah.
old? Okay, that was...
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, I'm just looking forward to organizing. That's one thing I look forward to with moving. I'll be able to reorganize everything, right? Because you all know, as resellers, you move in, everything's fresh, everything's organized. But if you don't keep on it, like, it just becomes a mess. And I'm looking forward to reorganizing everything. Hey, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Hope your sales are coming through. Hope sales are fire. Let us know how you're doing in the comments. Let us know any tips you have for people during this Q4. And look forward to catching you maybe on the next live or our next episode. And with that being said, make sure to be real.
Be relevant.
And be reselling. Peace.